So I, again, would definitely, reach out to the community as much as possible in the decision-making process. The process would begin by, just contacting all the people, who I feel would be affected by any sort of zoning change, and, laying out what the process is, making it clear, how this decision will be made. This, definitely be many different community meetings. I don't know that it would be a vote at any one particular meeting because I don't know how many people would be in attendance at each one. I would try, hopefully there'd be a long enough process to get many, many people involved. But I will, as Alderman, go out of my way to make sure that as many people are informed as I can. And for the record, I will not say that I would never approve anything like this. This at some point may make sense depending on the scenario. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there is a chance that it could make sense at some point.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Reichel.
Well, luckily we've had less of this kind of blockbusting slash condoization in the 47th Ward than in other parts of the city. And of course, I'm opposed to this form of development because you're talking about breaking up long-standing communities and meanwhile destroying the architectural integrity of the city. We're very lucky to live in what I would consider an architecturally beautiful part of the city. I just love taking walks through any part of the neighborhood because of the architectural splendor, so no reason to ever break that up. And the mass condoization that took place in the city was part of the process that I alluded to earlier, where the city government exists to accelerate wealth upwards. We tax the poor, we tax working and middle class people, and accelerate that via the city budget to private contractors, real estate developers, and so forth, the millionaires and billionaires who benefit from city government as it stands now, and I certainly hope to change that.
All right, thank you. I do have one quick follow-up, if you could take 15 seconds here. You mentioned preserving quality architecture that we currently have in the ward. Is there anything specific you would do to accomplish that?
Well, I mean, by resisting this kind of wave of condoization, of course that's all slowed down with the recession, but to generally prefer rehabbing old buildings rather than tearing them down and building anew. I mean, I think it's really important that we preserve the architectural treasures in this community.
Okay, thank you. And finally, Mr. Pillar.
I think we're finding that there's a lot of developments that have remained empty. You see on Western and Irving, there's a giant condo development that sits empty. I think what we need to do is have a real holistic planning mechanism so that if we're going to develop, that the community has say, but also that it makes sense. It doesn't change the character of our blocks in our ward. We're seeing a lot of that. You go drive up and down some of the streets and you find, these giant McMansions that are sitting empty next to small single-family homes. And what that's doing is it's forcing people out. It's forcing a lot of seniors out. So, yes, I will not support blockbusting. And I think the way to go forward is through this ward council. I'm going to keep talking about that, but it gives you voice. It gives you a mechanism to hold me accountable. And I'm not really quite sure how we would work block by block. It's democracy, it's messy, it's going to be messy, we're not going to get it right the first time, but you're going to have a say of what goes up or what comes down on your block.
Okay, thank you. On to our third question of this round. We've got number 11. Okay, one questioner notes that the 32nd ward, that includes much of Roscoe Village, is the only ward in the city with published zoning and development guidelines intended to protect the pedestrian scale of our community. What are your thoughts on this? And as Alderman, would you look to adopt similar principles and guidelines? We'll do a response order of Mr. Piwar, Mr. Reichel, Jacks, and O'Donnell.
Yes, it goes back to having a holistic plan. I want to be able to come back to the community and say, what is it that you want to see? We need to have a 25-year plan on what development's going to look like in our ward. It has to plug into, again, a larger citywide framework. But I also want to make sure that any published guideline requires that we use permeable concrete, better stormwater management, more green infrastructure in place so that whatever we do in the coming years, that it is sustainable. So to answer your question, yes, we will have a published a set of guidelines and standards for new developments and existing developments, but that will be created with your input and with the input from the Planning Department and the Department of Environment.
Okay, and to clarify, you said you would even go beyond that and have a 25-year development plan?
That'd be nice, yeah. I think that'd be a great thing to do, and I think that'd be one of the first initiatives.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Reichel?
Well, keeping with the theme of community involvement, again, the ward organization, if I'm elected, is going to become a coalition of community groups, so that you are active in the decision-making process and in any sort of changes or zoning changes that are made in the wards. So this is about empowering citizen activists. So if this has been enacted in the 32nd ward, more than likely take it on here. And if and when elected, Alderman Wagas back there in the 32nd ward is one of the great progressives, one of the great independents in the city council. So I would look forward to working with him to pushing forward with the people's agenda here in the city of Chicago.
I think he may have submitted this question, actually. Go on to Mr. Jacks.
Well, I absolutely support, the protecting the pedestrian scale. I feel that 47th Ward is already, pretty friendly with, open space. We have a lot of areas where people can walk, and I feel that's important. Having areas where people can walk, where people can bike, where people can be outdoors are important to establishing and, improving a sense of community. And I feel that this, community engagement leads to healthy communities and also helps the environment. It also improves safety. It improves efficiency about being able to, reduce congestion and traffic flow. And I feel that this is very important to maintaining, and I would be very supportive of these principles to ensure that our community remains healthy and hopefully can further improve.
Okay, and Mr. O'Donnell.
Well, I believe that we have a pedestrian-friendly ward. I walk the ward. I walk my dog every morning. It's very pedestrian-friendly. I think because one thing Alderman Schulter has done over the last 36 years, he's downzoned this ward. It's a very pedestrian-friendly ward. I know mistakes were made in 32. Maybe mistakes were made here, and I'll look at them and I'll see them. But I really believe that we have a pedestrian-friendly ward, and to protect that. I also believe in transparency and accountability are the two of the most important things in public service, and the need for the ward to implement any plan has to be one that the community sees. The community knows what to expect and not be just thrown into it. It's something that would have to be presented. So I would be for any kind of principles and guidelines that would say that everyone knows that there's some sort of large-scale plan that would not be pedestrian-friendly. But I think
But you would support publishing these guidelines for...
I'm not sure. These guidelines, I think we'd develop guidelines. Okay. I think that's what I would say.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Move on to the next random question here. Number 12. You do have 1 minute to respond. This may not take 1 minute, but do you favor term limits for aldermen and the mayor in the city of Chicago? Please explain. And the order of response is Mr. Reichel, O'Donnell, Paywar, and Jacks. Mr. Reichel.
Well, I'm committing to serve no more than 4 terms. I think that would in theory be a reasonable limit. Of course, 36 years on, and compared to other wards like the 50th, I guess we're lucky here. We got vacancy after only 36 years. Term limits can be a tough thing, especially for legislators. For the President of the United States, it makes a lot of sense because you don't want too much power in one hand or in a pair of hands. But the problem with term limit is then you're a lame duck half the time. You have lame ducks half the time serving you, and I don't think that makes for a proactive legislature. So I kind of came up with 4. Which I'll commit to. I won't serve any more than 4 terms, and I hope some of the other candidates are committing to similar limits.
Okay, next is Mr. O'Donnell, term limits.